Why the name Mad for Makeup? Like, what was the story of it?
I think there's a very famous saying from Steve Jobs, right? It's more of like, if you're not crazy or something like that, only the crazy people change the world, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's how we approach it. We think if you really want to make a difference, you gotta be a bit mad, right?
Yeah.
That's the case, right? You gotta be a bit mad,
Yeah, true. Hey guys, this is Matt, your host. Welcome to our podcast, a special episode. Welcoming Tony, the CEO for Mad for Makeup.
Hey you, right now. The powder and the blinking lights, don't talk to me, just close your eyes.
All right, Ton, thank you for doing this.
No, it's my pleasure, man. Blessed to be here with you also as well. Thanks for having me.
I was like, I think the very first interactions that we had back into 2.5, 3 years ago, and then I was like, the teams. We did a lot of screening for cool brands in the market, and then one of it, the very first came up on the top is Matte for Makeup, and I was like, I want this brand, man. Let's have a chat with this brand. And
It's very fast. Matte for Matte, yeah, makes sense.
Tony, maybe share a bit of story about the Matte for Makeups and the journey until today's, and you've been building an amazing brand here. Tell us a little bit more.
All right, thanks for asking that also as well. It's a long journey. We started 2017. My wife comes in one day from the clinic. She's an aesthetic doctor. She was finding out about whether patients, she was complaining, telling me, hey, patients really need makeup, but obviously they have acne, so they can put it on. So she's thinking, okay, how do we resolve this, right? So we looked around and we saw, hey, there wasn't really a lot in the market. So we said, okay, maybe let's try our own. Let's try and make it. But there's a bit of a problem, When we want to do this, neither her nor me were really makeup experts at the point. I used to come from oil and gas, so what I know about this. But we really thought, okay, maybe we could ask people. So we started to talk to people. And at first, when we started to ask, everybody told us no, because it wasn't the way that brands were made, right? Even my staff was telling us no. Even the people that were making communities were telling us no. So we thought, fuck it, we have to do it, right?
And this was quite early. 2017 is back then, right?
Yeah, you gotta know, right? Yeah. So that's how we started to do it. And one by one, they started to say, okay, you listen to us. We started to build this. And I think Matt is really, I think you already know, it's built by the community. It's built by this understanding of us producing really, really high quality goods, really research, so that you can have a good solution. That's the main idea of how we started. And obviously, we progressed a lot with their help. Our design, the way we talk about innovation has changed a lot. But at the core has always been, there's a problem. How do you want to solve it? Let's figure it out together. That's kind of how we do it. Yeah.
First of all, you're not Indonesian. Was it an obstacle, when the very first time you started brands and everything's in Indonesia market?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a very different culture, but I was very lucky in early part of my life. I did a water filtration company in Bali, so I owned it with. So I owned it with one of my friends, and we did W Hotel, Anantara, and so and so. So I picked up some Indonesian from there, and my wife as well. So that's a good place to pick up. And that's where I met her. And after that, I worked in China. I worked in Singapore for a long time. Came back. It still feels very familiar because actually my parents are also Indonesian, but it's still
way! I didn't know.
It's still a cultural thing, It's still very different. Jakarta, you say lu, you don't say you don't say a lot of those things, and a lot of the words are different. But I think what happened is really understanding a culture here is very different, and it's such a beautiful culture. So one of the introduction that I have of Indonesian culture is actually from a person it's Fadri, right?
Yeah.
Fadri from Large Crime is one of the best introduction of Indonesian culture. So I don't know him. He doesn't know me. We never met each other before. But I'll tell you a very short story. So I think it's early time, 2018, we had our first kind of fair. It's like a fair, like a beauty fest or something.
Yeah.
Very lucky, my booth was next to his. Right? He's setting up his booth, I'm setting up my booth, we're selling stuff. And Fadri, without saying anything, he came over, he introduced himself, he said, who are you, how are you doing? And he started helping me sell our products. He's doing makeup
really?
Too, right? So he was very generous, very heartfelt. Every time we want to do a campaign or a project or donation, he always gives. So that's how I kind of understand the culture. And it really kind of changed how we look at it. Because we do that with KOLs now, we do that with partners now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a way we learn.
No, actually, like, it's a very, I mean, we had a little bit of a conversations before this started as well, right? I mean, the way that I see Men for Makeup is, I mean, to be very honest, like, I said to you, right, I'm quite a big fan of, like, how do you guys approach the community, the brand building and stuff, because, it's a very honest, the way that, like, I see the fits and everything is, it felt like, that genuinity is there, right? And, maybe, like, you can tell me a bit more, right? Like, is that something that you guys been planned since the very beginnings, that you want to build an honest brand? I mean,
yeah, no, I think so I work in oil and gas for 5 years. After a while, you get allergic to the bullshit, right? So you're like, when you choose your own business, when you do your own thing, you're kind of like, let's do something honest.
Yeah.
So the community part of it was actually our attempt was, I think you understand, when we first started this, we felt that the industry lied a lot. For example, when they use preservatives in Indonesia, initially when they make it, they will use formaldehyde, which is what they use on dead bodies. Instead, we researched and we noticed you could use vitamin E. Obviously, the shelf life is slightly redacted, but you still get the same 2 years plus and all this thing. So we noticed there was a lot of lies in this industry, and we wanted to kind of break it with the audience. And when we approach our community, we didn't want to bring whatever kind of like, marketing to it. We want to say, look, you suffer, or what's your pain point? Let's work on it. And I mean, to be very honest with you, we were not like we're not experts in business in the past, but lucky for us, we somehow stumbled to the key thing, which is, build based on your customer, build on a very cool, very key product. And I think that's how we kind of do it. And when you give honesty to people, when you give like goodwill to people, it comes back in life, right? So the community keep building the brand with Men for Makeup. They've been with us. We have people inviting us for weddings. We have people inviting us. Like we get, it's a weird thing, but we're one of the kind of brands that have a tattoo, So they're rebels with Men for Makeup tattoo, right? They will tattoo our lipstick on this. So we've been very blessed, and that's how we kind of do it. And yeah, when you're allergic, bullshit.
And
Yeah,
that's, I mean, like, that must be like giving a direct impact to the business as well. I mean, we're talking about organic marketing from your communities and stuff. And
turns out it's a big saving. So one of the problems of D2C is that customer acquisition cost, right?
Yeah.
Okay, a bit technical, but, turns out that's the solution that we've been solving. I mean, it helped us a lot. Right now, we have one of the lowest customer acquisition costs, about $1 US. But it's a lot of effort. You have to build a lot of love into it. You have to give back. They would know whether you're not loving them, whether you're taking it for granted. It's human beings, right? These are human beings. They're not numbers. They're human beings. So you have to look at it at that approach. Yeah.
What is the biggest learnings that, like, you've experienced for the past how many years that, like, you've been existing? 8 years,
yeah,
right?
Almost 8 years.
Almost 8 years. Like, give me something practical, Sonny. Is it like, product innovations? Is that something that, very, very important for Indonesians? Like, some things that, like, you feel like the biggest experience, the biggest, like, learnings. And also, like, maybe the biggest kind of, like, deviation, like the gap. When you started it, 2017, it's like, you're expected, okay, 5-6 years. Oh, turns out, like, it's something like this that you learn, instead of like your initial hypothesis.
Okay, I'll give you the small one and I'll give you the big one. So on the small side, I was being asked also regarding this, right? So we started to see a lot of local brands and not, they have issues and they're closing down, and we reach out. And I noticed there is a commonality, and I'll give 3 very simple advice in regards to this. I think first, obviously, as you mentioned, you gotta focus on your customer. Focus on who you're really selling to. I have investors come to me, like Sequoia and things like that. They will come to me and they will say, how can you be the #1 makeup brand in the world or #1 in Indonesia? And we find it difficult to answer, but turns out the answer is that you can't. This ain't tech. This is not Google. You can't be the #1 search. But you can be #1 for them for a certain situation, for a certain reason. Like Mac or Makeover, they're specific on the event side, and then so on and so forth, right? So really focus on your key demographics. You can be greedy, but you should be greedy later when you have your key demographics. That's one we recommend. Second, you gotta focus on the product. It doesn't matter how good your marketing is, and Men for Makeup, we practice a lot, we do a lot of shit. I teach marketing mentorship for BCG, and no matter what you do, your product matters. The quality of your product, the standard of it, it's like bio oil. You know bio oil?
Yeah.
Bio oil don't need that much marketing. You know what I mean? You go in, you want to buy it, you need it because it works. It's a great product.
The product is good. I mean, like, it tells itself, right?
Absolutely. You gotta focus on this product. And the third, I think a lot of brands don't know the difference between branding, like what you're doing, versus selling.
Yeah.
I think this is 2 very key differences.
Yeah.
So focus on product, focus on the people, and focus on you yourself as a brand. Focus what you guys are doing. I know the fear is very large for many brand owners to think, I have a brand owner that once came up to me, quite a famous brand owner. He came up to me and said, "Are you worried that social is bringing a lot of brands and stuff?" I said, "You gotta hit your positioning. You gotta focus on this thing.
True.
Because yeah, you can worry, but is it helpful?
Exactly.
Find out how to beat, right? That's the thing. So that's just, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Focus on something you can control, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe that's the delusion, but so far it's worked for us, and that's what we really
No, that's
we
what
recommend.
I always keep saying to everyone as well, right? Look, like there is so many. I mean, the competition will always come. There's always
yeah.
new brands. There's always global brands coming, Chinese brands coming, foreign brands coming. But you need to actually, with that limited resources that everyone has. I mean, I have a limited resources. Like everyone's have a limited resources, right? We're not Elon Musk here, so
Write blank checks, like can't come buy an opening night.
So you want to pick your battles, right? In the sense that
Exactly.
as you mentioned, right? Pick up pick which one of the area that you want to focus and double down the efforts there. Right?
Yeah, because everybody's scaling, that's the thing. And when you ask the big question, in sense of business, has the mindset changed? Absolutely. Like you have to admit that when the Chinese brand comes in, it's a different game, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the statistics, so I have this statistic that was sent to me. In 2020, you had roughly about, I want to say about 5 to 15% is Chinese brand owners. Fast forward 3 years later, you're looking at close to 60 to 70% brand owners. In total, almost every day, 1,000 items come in Baypong.
Yeah.
And most of them ain't local.
Exactly.
Right? Most of them ain't local, right? So, but what happened was when they came in, they taught us a different set. Like in terms of change, they taught us a different set of how to play this game.
Yeah.
A very different set of playing in this game. So when me and BRP, BRP is earlier and me, role overreaction on this earlier, but when we came into this mid-level, it was very simple. It was run your Instagram well, okay, try to put on platform, you can sell, it will be scalable, go to GT empty, right? That's the play. When you meet the Chinese brand, their plays are amazing. You learn a lot. They have defensive, they have offensive. So when I'm launching a product, they'll buy my ads, right?
Yeah.
So you learn a lot of this kind of things on how to play. Before you launch a product, they will write comments about things. So they kind of change your perspective of how this business is run. But at the same time, they also tell you what they will and will not do, won't do also. Or maybe they're not able right now, maybe to do it in the future. So the mindset is that business always changes. It's not just what's going to be when you first start. It will keep changing as people come along, time changes. And even AI, when come in, also change how we do a lot of the marketing.
For sure.
Now you build so many internal tools. We used to have to pay people for the ERP. You have to do all these internal tools. Now you can hire one person, manage, and you can build all internal tools.
For sure. This is why exactly as well. One of the, I would say the what do you call it? The company DNA that we start to establish here is what we call the antifragilities, right? Meaning that every single time, exactly, right? Every single time that something hit you, it's not just you shouldn't just try to actually what do you call it, embrace it and stuff, but you need to be better with that, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's also very, very important for every brand founders because again, focus on something you can control. I mean, you want to dream on one. There's one times that the governments or anyone will block any of the foreign brands coming to Indonesia. It's not gonna happen, right?
Yeah,
so, and that's just how the global tradings approach and we should embrace it and we should be stronger than it, right?
Absolutely, I agree with you.
So, Tony, every single makeup brands or decorative brands usually have a very unique story, either in the good way or in the bad way during the COVID or pandemic.
Oh.
Usually, yeah, because I mean, the products that we're selling. I mean, I have a decorative brand as well. Usually, for those that wants to actually go out and stuff, and then COVID hits, everyone's locked down in their homes.
Oh yeah.
So how is there any stories that you can share?
Okay. During COVID was the first time I ever put on lipstick. Because
what?
I ever put on lipstick, right? So the problem is like this. So COVID, everything was locked down.
Yeah.
But we were really, really blessed. 3 reasons why we're blessed. First, actually we've been using Asana for a long time. So we actually are used to a mobile work kind of environment. So that helped a lot. Number 2, I'm kind of polite, so we shoot everything in-house. So Matt, we've been practicing, doing everything in-house. So we didn't have to go outside source, so we didn't have to do that. So we still could produce a lot of contents during that time.
Nice.
Yeah, and the third thing is being that actually the team really works well, just being by themselves, but we didn't have a model, right? So during COVID, we were very blessed because we could produce content, we could produce our own products, we could do a lot of these things. We were able to grow about 100% during COVID.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a blessing. COVID's when I got my house. That's the case, though. But what happened was that because models are hard to get, you can't get outsiders to come in. We had to kind of make a shoot that makes sense, and the one that made sense was me doing the shoot. So I had to end up taking the lipstick, I have to go and apply it, and the first time I do it, I mean, maybe you won't laugh, but for the women out there, they will laugh. I even hold it wrong, because apparently you have to hold it on this. It tells you how much I have to ask the audience here. So I hold it on the opposite side, and people caught it, and it became more interesting, because I think during the early periods of like 2019 to 2020, most guys were not using this, so it helped us also as well grow really big, so that was mainly our COVID thing. But we're very blessed, our team was kept together. The first thing that happened when we knew that incident, because my wife was in Korea, she saw the shutdown. We came down, we look at how much money we have, we say, can we continue to pay everybody if we don't earn a single cent for the next 12 months? We thought 12 months, turns out it's 2 years. And we're very blessed. I think you know the industry, so we could do that. And those were the stories of COVID. That's pretty much
crazy.
it. Yeah,
It's crazy. How big was the team at that point?
Oh no, small. We were 12 at most, 12 or 11, or even less. Yeah, small team. But let's keep them together. And
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's touch a bit on the not on the business side, but on the organization side,
sure.
on the people side of it, right? Because I think, look, the business statistic, it goes like this, right? I think there's a consensus opinions out there that one, if you don't have a co-founder, there's a higher risk of the business failure, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a solo founder here, but
You're
turns
special.
out there's also an opinion saying that if you are co-founding your business together with your wife, the risk of businesses and also the house conditions, the marriage conditions and everything is actually even at riskier kind of situations. How is it with you guys?
I'm a very okay. So there are a couple rules that I have, and I'll tell you my perspective of work. So the rules is I never bring stress home. That's number one rule, right? You go home the same way you're going to meet her, right? Nothing, whether good, bad day, yeah, great. You leave it in office. That's pretty much how I think about it. That's my rule. Then you definitely have to dedicate time, because if it's important to you, you got to build it. You have to dedicate time. So I allocate time also as well. And third, I'm very honest with how we do it. Actually, it makes me want to succeed even more, because you got to take care of a lot of people, right?
Exactly.
So this is not just about you. So you got to make sure you're really sharp on that. So so far I'm blessed. Who knows? But we're very blessed. We those rules have really helped a lot. Don't bring back the work, cut off, and you have to dedicate time. But I actually, the way I look at work is slightly different. I'm not sure how you look at it. Because I had I came from oil and gas, well-paid job, comfortable. I could just go on company money. So when you make that decision, you kind of have to live with it, right? And everybody's living that Sisyphus stone life. You got to push the rock up, come down every day, every morning, right? But if Sisyphus' trick was to believe, right, his final trick with the gods, because he always tricked the gods in death and everything, was to believe, are you happy or not when you push up the stone or not, right? So for me, I don't actually see it as work. I think everybody has to push their Sisyphus stone. I think even if you're not doing anything, you're pooping, you're shitting, you're eating, those are work to you if you don't like any of those things. So for me, I don't kind of take it as work. I don't take it as a balance. I think that I'm living my life. I like to problem solve. I like to work with my team. I like to see people happy. I see products that can help people, improve their life. And so for me, I don't really have that, I need a work-life balance kind of thing. It's more of just make sure you have time for your wife and don't go home angry. That's pretty much it. So that's my approach to it.
It's genuinely also enjoying working on that, right?
You got it. We're in a blessed generation where, our parents before, they had to work really, really hard, right? We're talking about picking up money, so on and so forth. So we have a choice of, we have choice now.
Compared to that,
you got a choice, right? They worked 40 years job, 50 years job, and they have to stay because they got you, right? So for us, if you got a choice and you're making it, you might as well be happy, right? That's the thing. To whatever extent that delusion extends to, but I find a lot of happiness in the things I do. I think you do too. You come in, you can see your staff happy, you can see people you can help. Why not?
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. It's a part of the job. It's a fun. The stress is also is always there, but it's how you want to take it, right? How you want to respond to it. How you want to contempt it.
Yeah. And on the larger scale, we are dust, right? In the essence of everything, right? We go, we come. you come if you can't come with if you don't come with it and you can't bring it away, don't think about it. That's the thought of it.
Yeah.
That's the thought of it.
Is there any point on this almost 8 years
Yeah.
journeys where you feel like you want to quit or you just want to stop doing this?
Well, there will be times. I won't lie, right? There will be times where, okay, shit, this thing happens, or like, oh, there's just too much work, or even just out of nowhere, sometimes you have the owner, even things are going very well.
Yeah.
Like you just win an award and you're sitting there, you're just like, maybe I want to try something else. You're human, you're fickle,
Yeah.
right? You can't eat the same nasi campur
Exactly,
every day, right?
yeah.
You gotta do something like that. Two things keep me. First, obviously, a lot of people depend on me. I have a very simple goal. I hope that all my staff can get paid double digits. That's my main idea. Wife is satisfied, and you make an impact of good in life. That's one. So sometimes I look at that. And secondly, I'm also thinking of myself, are you just bored or do you need a refresher? So sometimes you just kind of want to get away. That's a different thing, So you kind of want to look at that. But for sure, it's things that come in to you, but you have to process it the way. And I think usually that's the difference, right? The difference is whether can you pass it or you're just going to stop right now or not.
Yeah.
And I think that differentiates you whether can you go forward. Because there are many points in time where Mad for Makeup could have just ended up as a brand that nobody have heard of or just like that. But right now, last month we were ranked top 50 in the world for Instagram. The reason that's the case because, you just keep on going. And if you can help people every day, you can do that, why not? Sometimes a bit of the trouble, forget about it and it's done,
Yeah. I think that's the biggest things that I've always tell the entrepreneurs, right? Like it's the biggest difference here is that when you work for someone, you're just being professionals. I mean, you need to take care of your teams and stuff like that, but the burden is not as heavy as if you're running your own businesses and life of, I don't know, 15, 50, 100, people depends on you, right?
No, I agree with you. It's a lonely journey.
It is.
It is a lonely, I know, I totally hear you.
Yeah.
But I see, one of my staff also said this recently. She was promoted. Leadership is a blessing.
Yeah.
So I'm a Teochew person, so we use the word Tauke. Tauke means toujia. So when you say somebody's boss, you say in Teochew, he's a Tauke. But what I mean is toujia. Toujia means that in the past, a Teochew person, if they do a business, the workers are like family. You're responsible because you stay nearby, you afford the housing, you're around that area. So that kind of leadership is a blessing. Not everybody gets it.
Yeah.
And it's a calling, right? So that's how I think about it. It's like we're blessed. We can be in a position, we can affect people's life, whether they have a better marriage, have a better car. If due to our effect, hey, that's for me at least, an uplifting thing at least.
Is there also the cultures that you try to kind of implement into the organizations, push for I think that's the high ownership kind of approach for the employees, right? They want to put their head as the founders, as the owner of the companies as well, and they want to go all the way out. I mean, to really do something for the companies, right?
No, I think how we do it is two methods. It's in and out, right? So internally, obviously, you have a lot of reinforcements with the people you hire. We even have that kind of Nike 10 rules of things you don't have, but they don't read it sometimes. We also have our internal culture thing. But what we like to do is the point of hiring. We think this is the most important part, right? Before they come in, are they possible to be this way? So we do an inverse hiring.
What?
So we do an inverse hiring, right? So Mad for Makeup, we're very blessed, the name is good, the thing is good. So we get 2,000 applicants, 1,000 applicants. We always do inverse hiring. You come in, you sit with me. Actually, you sit with them. I'm very blessed. My girls, they're good, but sometimes you sit with me. The main question we ask you is don't work for us. If you work for us, it's a mid-sized company, right? You're going to work very hard. You're going to work sometimes, not always weekends, but you're sometimes going weekends. Sometimes you're going to put in this extra time. The standards are very high for the company. We will ask you a lot. I'm Singaporean. We tend to have this, and my staff also have this kind of things. If you want easy, you want a good salary, a good start, go to Tokopedia. It's not bad, right?
Exactly.
You do your job, that's it. And here you're asked to carry sometimes 2 hats, 3 hats, right? You have to think about this position. We can't hire for every micro position, right? So if this is not for you, go there. I'll write you a recommendation letter. I have a lot of girls there also that works there. We can help you recommend. You want to go L'Oreal, that's great also as well. So we kind of go through this with them. Why do you really want to work for us? Why do you want to do this? Now, if you tell us you really want to make impact in life, you see Matt as a good way to make, this great. This has to be a choice. We're blessed. We have people that make these choices, but this is very important. If you really want to do this, it's not an easy path. This is almost, as you mentioned, you asked those things. This is for people a red industry, right? Yeah. This is people for people red industry. We put in work, we put in time.
Exactly.
So we don't recommend it. And if you don't want to do this, that's great also as well. So I think if you ask that, then you really know who really wants to stay here. And And those who stay, they really want to stay because they make conscious choices. We have people from masters in anthropology, we have scientists, we have like pharmacists. They want to make this choice because of what this brand says to them and how they can help people. And I think that's what you got to do to build that culture, I think. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. Like, I always like, in fact, like, in the last town hall here, I was like, also telling everyone, right, I think for those like, really good talents, at this point, I think like, we come to into understandings, that realizations that like, they stay because they want to stay, right? They have the options. And then like, that's actually like how you also kind of filtering which one of like, your teams that and actual fighters, right? Because again, like, our business is not easy. I mean, in the sense that like,
I can tell.
we can like, really, we're not like, that Unilever size and stuff like that where everyone's comfortable and stuff like that, right? And then like, the quality of the talent can actually fit to us. I mean, if they apply there, like they probably like, get accepted, right? So, so hey, I actually like, skip one of the most important questions here that like, I had. Why the name Mad for Makeup? Like, what was the story of it?
I think there's a very famous saying from Steve Jobs, right? It's more of like, if you're not crazy or something like that, only the crazy people change the world, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's how we approach it. We think if you really want to make a difference, you gotta be a bit mad, right?
Yeah.
That's the case, right? You gotta be a bit mad,
Yeah, true. So no, I think like, that's right. It's there's nothing wrong about like, being a little bit more mad, a little bit more like, ambitious, right?
Oh.
Like, I don't know, like, how, I mean, you're Malaysians, right?
Singaporean, yes.
You're Singaporeans, you're not Indonesians, but like, I always say, right, the biggest things that like, I always kind of have a little bit of itch about like, the Indonesians' talents here is that the mentality of it, right?
I understand. Yeah.
They have a little bit of like, very soft mentality that I think is really good for us. We need to be, I mean, because don't get us wrong, don't get me wrong, Tony. The Indonesian talents, and I've worked and I've,
you want that edge. I get it.
Yeah,
you want that edge. Yeah.
I've interacted with a lot of them, and they're very smart. They're very talented. Like, they're pretty awesome, right? But usually, when it comes to one easily overpowered, meaning that like, if they got shout a little bit and stuff, they don't want to like they pull themselves out a little bit and stuff. While they actually have a very strong ideas that they can defend, right?
Absolutely. I got to say shout out to Gen Zs. So Gen Zs have a bad rap on a lot of. Almost every time I'm on a speech channel, some guy will ask, how do you do with Gen Zs? No, Gen Zs are, shout out to Gen Zs. I think it's more of, if you don't mind, I actually really understand what you're talking about. Is this edge. So how we do it in MAT, actually we have two ways of doing it. So first is, we actually really, on the dashboard, we do even have our competitors on the forefront. I'm very, very clear, like, who's the people that's taking your money? We'll say it this way. They're taking your money. Do you want them to take your money? We'll talk of that way. And again, on the hiring side, you want somebody with a bit of maths. I think so. But I hear what you're saying. Initially, when I was hiring, I totally know what you're talking about.
Because I think like this the Indonesian's word for it is like nggak enakan, right? It's like a bit shy, right?
That's a rule in my company. There is the second rule is there's no malu-malu kucing. You're in an international company. Nggak enak is outside.
Exactly,
right? You can be enak with other people. You can't be enak.
And I think like if that culture can be kind of improve, right? Then it's actually going to be very, very good domino effect, the way that I see it, because then people don't take things personal. It's like when maybe they have a disagreements and the business is business, right? You need to actually have a bit of debates and stuff. I mean, I don't always have to agree with you, and you don't always have to agree with me.
That's healthy.
So okay. So what's next for Matt?
We think there is an opportunity. We think we put ourselves in a very good opportunity. Last year was one of our best years or so as well. We think people with acne skin still needs makeup. So we think Southeast Asia is the way to go. We think we can expand further Indonesia. We'll plan our offline distribution. We used to only have 20. This year we aim for about 100 points. So that's... we got to go out already.
Exactly.
One of my problems is you talk about ambition. Actually, my investors always say I'm not ambitious. That's, but they always want 10x.
10x return.
Like, how? But so for us, our main vision is we got to get out there. We are a digital brand. We have to start being a real brand. And I think this is the movement towards us. 8 years is enough. I'm tired also.
Let's discuss a little bit of. I think. a lot of like local brands, right? They are curious, I think, like on how the interactions, within the businesses with the investors when they have investors, right? Because I think most of them they want to like get some investors, but some of them like they a bit of reluctance of how the dynamic after that and stuff. Maybe you can share a bit of like tips or dynamics. On this.
Okay, very tricky question. I would say mainly 3 points. The first point is the way our market is structured. There's not a lot of pure FMCG investors.
Yeah, true.
Right, you get some of the aggregators. I think they understand a bit better. DSG is also not too bad. They got some of that. But most investors, they don't really know how your business is run. Right, they'll come in with a very tech mindset. 10x, number one, how? Right, if you're not, that's it. They don't mind, and they always have money. Don't worry about the money. But the thing is, you don't have to worry about that. Run your business your way. Try to really figure out, and you have to make sense and be open to that.
Yeah.
Second is that even founders need a scolding from time to time. So don't be afraid that you are wrong. I think, in fact, being wrong means you change faster. It's better, right? So early on, when I had my investor, we had to change a lot of things. They were not happy with a lot of things, and you can be, the resistance for human beings is always no. I think it's pretty good, but that helped us grow a lot, right? So. That I would say don't be worried about. I think that's what you want them for, unless they are pure strategic, So if you bring an investor, they're going to say something because it's their money. And if you know most investors, they have principles. They're not pure holding fund forever. They got somebody got to pay back. They also are working people also as well. So don't be worried. They're trying to help you get more money also as well. If you disagree with direction, that's your own call, right? That's your own call. But second thing, please be open to understanding. And third is, it's like a marriage. So you do want to make sure you get into bed with the right person and not just for the money. Never do it for the money. The money, if you have a good business, you good profits, your revenues are good, you're doing the right thing, they will throw money. The money will come
anyway.
It's going to come.
Yeah.
But the right person is a special thing. Every investor will come across very smart, very good numbers, but not all of them are right people. You got to spend time with them. You got to really know them. You got to say, is this a person you want on your board? You're going to see them almost every week, every month. Your data room, they're going to call for it. They're going to say, okay, what's your numbers? What's your thing going to be? You need somebody that you can talk to, that understands you, have faith in your business, what you want to do. So you kind of really need somebody that when you're married to.
Yeah,
because,
for sure.
Yeah, you do a good business, you have a great idea, they will throw money.
Exactly.
If not them, somebody else will throw money because they got too much.
The money comes,
The money comes. When the interest rates in America go down, they trust me, they will come.
They don't know what to do with the money anyways.
that's actually the secret of the rich, isn't it? It's
exactly.
it's just where they want to flow it, right?
Yeah,
Whether this makes sense, they look at the bank rates, and that's.
That was actually very, very useful. I also told the guys that usually asking these kind of questions is that I think the number one fundamental things that you need to actually do here is that take one step back.
Oh yeah.
And then really ask yourself whether that you need the extra money or not, right? Because I feel I'm a little bit worried that everyone's trapped into the FOMO of raising money from the externals. No, in a sense, they feel like okay, they're not cool enough if they don't have the money from. I think in fact the way that I say it, if you can actually grow your businesses without the investors,
you should be able to.
Exactly.
You should be able to. Actually, I fall into that whole recently this month. We pay back. That we brought back because, again, the vision, everything like that. You want it back. And if you ain't running this to the point where it can make sense. Look, we're not in tech, so I cannot speak for tech. Tech is a very different structure. I don't know a lot. And I know they're very heavily intensive initial investment capital businesses, so I can't speak for them. Yeah. But if you're on an FMCG, at least for my industry, if you ain't making a dime, you better change. Your product market fit is not good. Your customer product fit is not good. Your marketing is not good. You got to work on yourself. If you ain't working on yourself because of the way that our margins are stretched out, the way the unit economics is for this market, you need self-reflection. This is not an investor's fault. This is our fault in a sense. But obviously, if you want to get the next stage, I get it. For me, I get it if you want the next stage. But at this stage, you got to be investor ready. You got to do it yourself.
True.
You got to do it
so
yourself.
True. That's what I was saying. I mean, look, what do they always say the greener.
The green pasture, the grass is green on the other side.
Always greener, and stuff like that, right? In the sense that, I think everyone has their own pace, right, on the businesses, and everyone, has their own kind of, visions. Don't just, really, that FOMO things, right? Because, look, in a sense that, if you are, comfortable with, growing the business 20% year on year, that's okay with you, man. I mean, if like, you want to get into that ambitions of growing two times 200 percent, then you need the capitals coming from outside because like you don't have it and stuff, and that's also like good and okay. And I feel like that's something because it has a pro and cons, right? Running the business your own without like investors has a pros, has a cons as well.
Absolutely.
Having investors also like has a pros
Absolutely.
and cons, right? It's not like just people throwing monies and then like okay, we'll see you in 10 years if like you can make it or not, right?
Absolutely. But that said, on FMCG side, you cannot you can grow 20% at the start, but after that you better be multiples because if you want to keep your kids, so for us, I'll tell you a story. When we first start, we were like saying, oh, I'm 20%, that's good enough because I'm an old guy, right? So my business is you sell, you make money, you're good enough, right? I have brands coming in to take up all the kids that you train, right? You train very hard. So if you want to keep the girls, you want to make sure that your company is successful, you gotta 2x it. You gotta look at that kind of aggression. But I totally agree. At the start, you can take it easy. You can take it easy.
I think like what do you feel or what do you feel on the exit for the brands in the market, right? I think like the US, the States started it 5-7 years ago. Like we see almost every quarters there's a M&A happening, Unilever, P&Gs and stuff. Dollar Shave Club got bought.
Revlon bankrupt.
And Five for Frankers as well and stuff. Do you see that trend is coming here?
Absolutely. Okay, so I was telling the staff also as well. I'm very blessed. I have a very good board of director. My board of director is ex-LVMH. Gerland's regional manager. So she sent me this financial report. So all the investors in the US for the beauty side, they're talking exactly what you're talking about because that's what they're concerned about. They're going to talk about exit. 8 out of 10 times they're going to talk exit. So they plot out this very beautiful chart, right? They got the starters, early starters, you got Glossier and all that. Then you got mid-level people who come in like Youth to the People and whatnot. And they got ending. They call this right now the ending. They call this the age of champions. Now, this is very interesting. So last time they see previously was investors would pay a lot on startups for the bet. In the middle, they would just bet on people they believe it's okay. The last age of champions is that they believe that this is the period where only if you're good enough to succeed.
True.
And they believe that we're going back to merger of the initial, D2C was born because of against the L'Oreal kind of thing, right? The internet came up, you can buy online.
True.
They believe now because of the omni-channel requirements and all these requirements, you're going to need to be L'Oreal. If not, you got to get out.
Yeah.
If not, the second exit they're talking about is merger. So I think I see three trends that will occur. First is I'll see brands that don't have that fundamental will continue to face very strong difficulties or at least closure. Second, I expect, but I haven't seen it yet, I think local brands will start M&A. I would think that better to kind of consolidate small portions of the positionings, if they are strong enough. And the third, obviously, is that they will scale to a L'Oreal, like you see on the WADA level and so on and so forth, right? They have to be. You can see early brands start to do that with White Lab and Some Things Group and all that kind of thing. So that one at least is in play. But I think these three trends will can. You either fail, you either get bought out, or you either become one of them. And they call that the age of champions. So it became one round. We started being...
Full cycle.
Yeah, full cycle, right? D2C fighting the big guys, and now you got to be the big guy. Because if you don't have brick and mortar, you don't have your offline, you're right, it's very
tough.
Different thing.
Yeah.
We sat down with consultants recently, and very shocking. I don't know how true this is. This is what the consultant told me, so I got to preface it a bit. We were asking the question, how much percent of the audience for D2C, for FMCG, is buying offline versus online, right? So first country we asked is Indonesia. I'll keep that number to the last, right? And then I'll let you guess it. So we asked about US. What do you think that number is?
50-50?
Exactly. It's 50-50. Holy shit, 50-50. So we asked about Japan. I thought Japan was like tacky and everything. No, it's 60-40. And when we
60 on the
60
offline.
Offline. And that's the thing that shocked me also as well. Then when we asked about Indonesia, this is the thing that shocked us. Do you know the number?
I know.
It was 90-10.
Exactly.
I couldn't believe it because, I'm in this bubble, right? We're like selling, a million, that's great. 90-10. I was like, there's 90% of money I haven't been right? So, but that's the truth,
Which is it's amazing learnings, right? I mean, I think we're one of was it with you or I forgot about 2.5 years ago, I met someone of the brand founders as well as that, I think he, was it he just came from the States or some things and then he was very into this because at that times, they're seeing a lot of these valuations jack up on the D2C brands and stuff, right? I was saying, Look, I mean, I understand like, this idealistic of you need to actually sell on your own channels and stuff. But for me, I think the Indonesian market, you need to follow the money. Simplest, right?
You're right.
And like, if you see a lot of D2C in the US, even like they're now going into the omni channels anyway. They're Walmarts and everything, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
it's has been very interesting. Like, and I'm actually very excited about the next generations. Because like this, exactly as what you said, right? This is like, replicating of the .com bubbles, right? In the sense that like, back in the 98 and stuff, right? The very first early of the .com. So we're talking about, PayPals and everything and stuff.
I am that old. Don't worry. I'm that old. I'm with you. Yeah.
And what happened at that time was like, they, those guys that like, has been on the very first ride on into that, .com era, right? They learn from like, their founders' mistakes, which now a lot of like, my team, I hope that they learn like, from our mistakes for the past 3-4 years as well.
Yeah.
And then like, what happened, it would be like, in the next 5 years or so, they're gonna like, building a business with much like, more knowledge than what we need to actually experience the past 7 to 8 months, right? 7 to 8 years, right? Exactly like, how this .com generations came.
No,
Right?
I think that's very poignant. That's exactly it. If you look at it, exactly. That's the parallel. I agree.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's exciting. We'll see what happens.
It's very exciting. Tony, thank you so much for doing this. It has been so much fun. I think, I really hope 2025 will be like, super exciting for you. I'm quite excited with the 2025. And then like, we'll see you soon.
Hopefully. Thank you so much for having me. Also.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Like, that's it. Tony from Met for Makeups. We'll see you guys next week.